Hi there. So nice to see you back. I see you're in the mood for a really good book. This one's called Shiloh. It's written by Phyllis Reynolds Naylor. And this story is about a young boy named Marty and this dog named Shiloh. Now, you may have noticed that I didn't say his dog named Shiloh. You'll see why soon. An interesting thing about this book is that it was based on a real live event, something that the author observed in her life. Now, this isn't a true story. Nope, authors don't always write true stories. Sometimes their fictional stories are inspired by maybe something they saw in nature, or maybe it's something that they experienced themselves or another book that they've read. Inspiration is all around us. Well, this book was inspired when Phyllis Reynolds Naylor and her husband were visiting West Virginia, and they saw a dog on the side of the road. That's all I'm going to tell you because I'm afraid to tell you too much. I'm afraid it'll give some of the special surprises away. But I will tell you the full story at the very end of the book. The actual true story that inspired this particular book. You guys see Margot running around in the background? She loves this book. She loves it. It gets her all fired up. So, without further ado, let's get started, shall we? With chapter 1 of Shiloh. Now remember, this takes place in West Virginia, and this family are rather rural, meaning they live out in the country. They're you'll tell they live a simple lifestyle. I love this book, and I hope you do too. Page 1, chapter 1. The day Shiloh come, we're having us a big Sunday dinner. Well, Dara Lynn's dipping bread in a glass of cold tea, the way she likes, and Becky pushes her beans up over the edge of her plate in her rush to get them down. Ma gives us her scolding look. Well, just once in my life, she says, I'd like to see a bite of food go direct from the dish and into somebody's mouth without a detour of some kind. Well, she's looking at me when she says it, though. It isn't that I don't like fried rabbit. I like it fine. I just don't want to bite down on buckshot, is all. Now, let me stop there. Buckshot, when you shoot something with a shotgun, the shell on the inside is this little cartridge, and inside of it's almost like a bunch of little BBs that go pew, that shoot out in a million different directions, kind of like that. And so it'd be like biting down on a metal ball, a little BB of sorts. And so he's saying it's not that he doesn't like fried rabbit, it's just that he doesn't like biting down on metal. And so I'm checking each piece. I looked that rabbit over good, Marty, and you won't find any buckshot in that thigh, Dad said, buttering his bread. I shot him in the neck. Somehow I wish he hadn't said that. I pushed the meat from one side of my plate to the other, threw the sweet potatoes and back again. Did it die right off? I asked, knowing I can't eat it at all unless it had. Soon enough. Well, did you shoot its head clean off? Dara Lynn asks. She's like that. Dad chews real slow before he answers. Not quite, he says, and then he goes on eating. Which is when I leave the table. The best thing about Sundays is we eat our big meal at noon. Once you get your belly full, you can walk all over West Virginia before you're hungry again. Any other day, you start out after dinner, you got to come back when it's dark. I take the .22 rifle Dad had given me in March on my 11th birthday, and I set out up on the road to see what I can shoot. Like to find me an apple hanging way out on a branch, see if I can bring it down. I line up a few cans on a rail fence and shoot 'em off. Never shoot anything moving, though. Never even had the slightest wish. We live high up in the hills above Friendly, but hardly anybody knows where that is. Friendly's near Sistersville, which is halfway between Wheeling and Parkersburg. Used to be, my daddy told me, that Sistersville was one of the best places you could live in the whole state. Well, you ask me the best place to live. Well, I'd say right where we are. A little 4-room house with hills on 3 sides. Afternoon is my second best time to go up on the hills, though. Morning's the best, especially in the summer. Early morning. On one morning, I saw 3 kinds of animals, not counting cats, dogs, frogs, cows, and horses. I saw a groundhog. I saw a doe with 2 fawns. Do you know what a doe is? Yeah, it's a female deer. It's the mama deer. And her fawns are her babies. So he saw a mama deer and 2 baby deer. And saw a gray fox with a reddish head. Bet his daddy was a gray fox and his ma was a red one. My favorite place to walk is just across this rattly old bridge where the road curves down by the old Shiloh schoolhouse and follows the river. River to one side, trees the other, sometimes a house or 2. And this particular afternoon, I'm about halfway up the road along the river when I see something out of the corner of my eye. Something moves. Well, I look, and about 15 yards off, there's this short-haired dog, white with brown and black spots, just not making any kind of noise, just slinking along with his head down, watching me, tail between his legs like he's hardly got the right to breathe. Well, it's a beagle, maybe a year or 2 old. I stop, and the dog stops. Looks like he's been caught doing something awful. When I can tell all he really wants to do is follow along beside me. Here, boy, I say, slapping my thigh. Dog goes down on his stomach, groveling around in the grass. Well, I laugh and I start over toward him. He's got an old worn-out collar on, probably older than he is. Bet it belonged to another dog before him. Well, come on, boy, I say, putting out my hand. The dog gets up and backs off. He don't even whimper. It's like he's lost his bark. Something really hurts inside you when you see a dog cringe like that. You know somebody's been kicking him, beating on him maybe. Well, it's okay, boy, I say, coming a little closer, but he still backs off. So I just take my gun and follow along the river. Every so often I look over my shoulder and there he is, the beagle. I stop, he stops. I can see his ribs. I mean, not real bad, but he isn't plumped out or anything. There's a broken branch hanging from a limb out over the water, and I'm wondering if I can bring it down with one shot. Well, I raise my gun, and then I think about how that sound might scare the dog off. And I decide I don't want to shoot my gun much that day. It's a slow river. You walk beside it, you figure it's not even moving. If you stop, though, you can see leaves and things going along. Now and then a fish jumps. Big fish. Bass, I think. Dog still trailing me, tail tucked in. Funny how he don't even make a sound. Finally, I sit on a log, put my gun at my feet, and I wait. Back down the road, the dog sits too. Sits right there in the middle of it, like head on its paws. Well, here, boy, I say, and I pat my knee. He wiggles a little, but he don't come. Maybe it's a she-dog. Well, here, girl, I say. Dog still don't come. I decide to wait the dog out, but after 3 or 4 minutes on the log, well, it gets boring and I start off again. And so does the beagle. Don't know where you'd end up if you followed the river all the way. Heard somebody say it curves about, comes back on itself, but If it didn't and I got home after dark, well, I'd get a good whooping. So I always go as far as the ford where the river spills across the path, and then I head on back. When I turn around and the dog sees me coming, he goes off into the woods. I figure that's the last I'll see of the beagle, and I get halfway down the road again before I look back. And there he is. I stop, he stops. I go, he goes. And then, hardly thinking on it, I whistle. Well, it's like pressing a magic button. The beagle comes barreling towards me, legs going lickety-split, long ears flopping, tail sticking up like a flagpole. Well, this time I put out my hand and he licks all my fingers and jumps up against my leg, making little yelps in his throat. He can't get enough of me. Like I'd been saying no all along and now I'd said yes. And he'd come. Well, it's a he dog, like I thought. Hey, boy, well, you're really something now, ain't you? I'm laughing as the beagle makes circles around me, and I squat down and the dog licks my face and my neck. Where'd he learn to come if you whistled and to hang back if you didn't? Well, I'm so busy watching the dog, I don't even notice that it started to rain. Don't bother me. Don't bother the dog neither. I'm looking for the place I first saw him. Does he live here, I wonder? Or at the house up the road? Each place we pass, I figure he'll stop. Somebody'll come out and whistle maybe. But nobody comes out and the dog don't stop. Keeps coming even after we get to the old Shiloh schoolhouse. Even starts across the bridge, tail going like a propeller. Well, he licks my hand every so often just to make sure I'm still there, mouth open like he's smiling. He is smiling. Once he follows me across the bridge, though, and on past the grist mill, now I start to worry. Looks like he's fixing to follow me all the way to our house. Now, I'm in trouble enough coming home with my clothes wet. My mama died of pneumonia, and we don't ever get the chance to forget it. And now I got a dog with me, and we are never allowed to have pets. Well, if you can't afford to feed them and to take them to the vet when they're sick, you got no right taking them in, Ma says, which is true enough. Now, I don't say a word to the beagle the rest of the way home, hoping he'll just turn at some point and go back. The dog just keeps coming. I get to the front stoop and say, "Go home, boy." And then I feel my heart squeeze up at the way he stops smiling and sticks his tail between his legs again and slinks off. Well, he goes as far as the sycamore tree, lies down in the wet grass, head on his paws. "Whose dog is that?" Ma asked when I come in. I shrug. Just followed me is all." "Where'd it pick up with you?" Dad asked. "Up in Shiloh across the bridge," I say. "On the road up by the river? I bet that's Judd Travers' beagle," says Dad. "He got himself another hunting dog just a few weeks back." "Judd got him a hunting dog? Well, how come he don't treat him right?" I asked. "Well, how you know he don't?" "Way the dog acts. Well, he's scared to pee almost," I say. Ma gives me a look. "Don't seem to me he's got any marks on him," Dad says, studying him from our window. Don't have to mark a dog to hurt him, I'm thinking. "Just don't pay him any attention and he'll go away," Dad says. "And get out of those wet clothes," Ma tells me. "You want to follow your Grandma Slater to the grave?" I change clothes and then I sit down and turn on the TV, which only has 2 channels. On Sunday afternoon, it's preaching and baseball. I watch baseball for an hour, and then I get up to sneak to the window. Ma knows what I'm about. "That Shiloh dog still out there?" she asked. I nod. He's looking at me. He sees me there at the window, and his tail starts to thump. And I name him Shiloh. And there is the first chapter of this most amazing book. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Tune in to the next episode where we tackle chapter 2. Have a great day, you guys. Thanks for tuning in.